Hello viewers, welcome back to the Moose Mobile Auto Repair channel. And today I'm working on a 2006 Mazda 3, and it has a 2.3 liter engine. Today the customer towed this vehicle over to me because it overheated on the highway, and so they had to call the tow truck. And so there's a coolant leak at the moment, so we are going to have a look at it and possibly to pressure test the cooling system and see on where the leak is coming from. Now this customer stated that he shut the vehicle off right away just before it started to overheat because he saw the coolant gauge, it was rising, and so he shut the vehicle off and pulled over to the shoulder on the highway. So since the customer has stated that, most likely there's no damage done to the engine. So the customer was telling me that the coolant was leaking from somewhere in this area. So I see some green coolant here on the water outlet housing, I believe. But we are going to take all of the plastic stuff off here and see on what's happening. We're gonna remove all the plastic stuff, the battery covers and the air box stuff. Just gonna see what's going on here. I'm gonna remove the air box and everything. We're going to loosen the 10 millimeter air duct. I'm just gonna spray a little bit of the penetrating oil because it's a bit seized, just to make removal easier, so the bolt does not break. I'm going to remove the clip for one of the disconnect the mass airflow. There's a coolant hose here that's on the bracket. Just having a difficult time trying to disconnect this line here. There we go. That's out of the way. This whole thing just comes out. Air filter. Just having a closer look here to see on what's going on. This air box comes out here. You can see a puddle of green coolant here. It's sitting on the transmission side. So you can see all of the green coolant here. It's sitting on the transmission. It's coming from above here, I believe, in the housing, the plastic housing. You can see the green coolant there. I may still pressure test this just to be 100% sure, and just go from there. But I see a lot of bad stuff here and some corrosion on the ground cables here. I'm just going to leave that alone. Just having a look. This customer doesn't want to keep this vehicle for too much longer, maybe for another 6 months or something, but they just want to fix the issue here so they can drive it for the time being. So I have a pressure test kit here that I'm using. So I'm just going to pump this up a bit. Not holding pressure, and I can hear the air is leaking out from here. As I'm pumping the pressure tester, if you look over here, you'll see coolant coming out, and you can hear it as well over here, the green coolant. I'm going to pump it again. You can see the coolant is coming out from here. So now we are going to remove the water outlet housing. We're going to disconnect these two connectors from here first. Get everything out of the way. I believe there's a bracket here that's holding the there's a couple of solenoids here for the evap system, Torx screws, so we are going to have to remove that out of the way. We are going to have to disconnect the line here and get that out of the way. So we have a T25 Torx here, so we're going to remove the bracket. There are a total of 4 of these T25 Torx bolts. It's just the bracket that's holding the onto the water outlet housing. And to remove the evap lines out of the way here. Squeeze in. There should be 2 in the back as well. I'm just using a magnet to catch the bolts if you're not able to grab them. Should be 1 in the back here as well. Now you should just be able to pop this out. You may need to remove the evap hoses, and you may need to mark them to know on where they go back. So I'm just going to pull this out of the way. Being careful to not damage anything. And if you want, they have bolts at the bottom here. You can just remove the bolts, so you don't have to remove the lines. You can just leave the lines in. Just remove these two bolts out, and then you can take them out. I'm just gonna remove these bolts. That way you don't need to worry about the bracket or the hoses and stuff. You can just get all of this stuff out of the way. And just move it over to the side. So now we are going to remove the upper radiator hose out of the way. See if we can twist this off or not. Get that out. Make sure you have a drain pan here so you can catch the coolant. Now there are two 10 millimeter. There is one nut here in the back beside the engine, and there's one in the back here for the bracket. It's a bolt and where the connector is. So we are going to disconnect those so we can get some more room. We'll take that bracket off after. And we need to do the one that's in the back here. You should be able to get these brackets out of the way so you have some more room to work. So now I remove the engine cover. You probably want to take this out just to move the harness out of the way. There's one hose that's in the back here that you need to take out. Trying to twist the hose at the same time and turning the clamp. I may need to use a tool, the hose tool, to get it out. There is a plastic uh, plastic bracket here to hold this hose, so you gotta make sure you take it off of the bracket. Now I'm going to try again here. It's hard to get a good view of the camera. I'm going to move the hose now. Get that clamp out of the way. Go to the back here to remove the hose. It's gonna be hard to show you guys this on camera, so I'm just going to push the hose with this tool, and at the same time at the back I use the other hand to pull on it. Here. Now I believe there is still one more hose at the very bottom that's hard to get to, so I have to see if I can get to it now or after I take the housing off. There's one at the very bottom, just underneath where we took off the upper radiator hose. So I just pulled this wiring harness out of the way from this bracket that's down here. We just need to pull back on the harness. So here's a new part here. Looks like this. There's a total of 4 bolts that is mounted onto the block here. We have the bottom hose that we need to take off. That's at the bottom still. And then I believe there's a sensor or something that goes here. The new gasket. That's it. I won't be able to show everything on camera, and that's the issue here. It's a very tight space, so I'm just trying to do the best I can. So all of the bolts are 8 millimeters. So we're going to try to get them off now. Whoop. Drop the bolt down there. So here's the bolt. So we are going to continue to remove the rest of the other bolts now. It's very hard to see and to access from here. Shit. If you're having a hard time trying to reach these bolts, you can always use a magnet as you are trying to get them out at the same time, so you won't drop them. That's 2 out of the 4. There's still 2 more from on top here. So we are going to be removing the top bolts now. Very hard to access here. So right now there's a bracket beside the battery area that we are going to take off to give ourselves some extra room just down here. There's a nut in which you can take the bracket off. And it's kind of in the way of things. I'm just going to remove the bracket. Mm-hmm. So I'll try to make myself some more room. It's very difficult to access back here. We have the PCM in the way, the computer. And get the bolt here. Mm-hmm. Now we have one other bolt that's left here, and we got this one here that was in here, and now we have to do the one that's at the bottom. So now there's the one that's at the bottom now over here. You guys won't be able to see it because there's just no room to put the camera in there. Let me get that out. To grab a magnet here. Now we're able to pull this out, but we need to be careful still. We have the hose attached here in the front, and we still have the sensor, the coolant temperature sensor in the very back here, I believe. There's a conductor in the back, so we're going to need to pull that out. I need to get this connector off by pushing down on the tab. Mm-hmm. That's out. Now we need to get the bottom hose out from here. So I finally got that hose out, so we can take the whole assembly out of here now. And there's just the bypass hose, I believe, that's going from the radiator to here. and just unclip it. And we may need to transfer over the sensor onto the new part. There we go. Now we're just gonna remove this if we're able to and transfer it over. So this sensor takes a 19 mil. We just need to transfer it over to the new one. Should come right out. Probably going to clean it up a little bit and then reinstall it onto the new one. I'm trying to see now if I see that there's a seal here. I don't know if I need a new sensor. I'm going to see if I need to order a new sensor or not, because I don't want that one to leak. So usually you should go in here into the new one. This is the old gasket from the old housing. I don't know if it looked like it was cracked or something. Could see some cracks that's running across from here. You can see the crack here. I don't know if the new one is the same or not. I don't see any cracks on the new one. I don't know if that's just the plastic or if it's cracked in there. See, this piece is I think this piece here is broken from here. I think, I don't know if that's the design. I can't really see at the moment on where it leaked out from, but it was coming from the housing area. So now we're just going to be using the 3M Scotch Brite. I cut it down to size. So we're just going to clean the surfaces on the aluminum of the block here. It looks like it's the cylinder head itself. It's not part of the block, so I assume it's the cylinder head here. So we're just gonna clean on the side of the engine here to make sure that the surfaces are clean just before we install the new housing. So we're just going to clean the housing here, and then we are going to get ready to install the new engine coolant temperature sensor, and then we are going to install the water outlet housing. So I lubricated the seal with coolant here. So we're going to install this in here. And we're just going to tighten it up until it's snug. You don't need to tighten it too much. So now I finished cleaning the surfaces here. So we're just going to wash this down with brake cleaner. And we're just going to give this a quick wipe before we install the new housing. So now we are going to lubricate this seal here with a new coolant before we install it onto the cylinder head. So now we're going to install the hose that goes here, and then we are going to install the 4 mounting bolts. We need to get this in here. So, I'm gonna install the hose first. So now I'm going to be reinstalling the hose that goes at the bottom. So I'm going to be doing that first. So you want to make sure you get that hose in first before you do anything else. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get it in. So now we're going to install the housing onto the cylinder head here. I cleaned the bolts earlier, so you can put some anti-seize if you want, or you can install them dry. So I'm just going to try to get all of the bolts in by hand first. So we're going to install the first bolt here. I'm just having a hard time trying to get access to put the bolt through. So I'm starting the bolts through by hand first. You want to get all 4 bolts in first before you tighten anything up. That's one. And we're gonna do the second one. It's not too bad of a job, but at the same time it can be a little difficult to do because of the access here. You could remove other stuff such as the PCM and the battery out of the way to give you more room, but I just want to remove on what is necessary. I don't want to do too much work for myself. So I'm just removing just the bare minimum in order to gain access to the part. I nearly forgot that you need to install this in the small tubing. So I forgot to do that at the same time with the hose. So I'm going to do that now. So I forgot to mention that before you put in the mounting bolts, you want to put everything that's behind here first before you put any of the mounting bolts in. You want to make sure that you install both of the hoses in the back and the connector for the sensor. You want to get everything in that's in the back, because after you mount it on, it's going to be extremely difficult to put the stuff in the back in. So you want to put the hoses and the connector in the back in first, and the one at the bottom here, the hose, the bypass hose, and then you want to put the 4 of the mounting bolts in, and then we will put this one in last. We are going to do the third out of the 4 bolts now. Just trying to get this bolt in now at the bottom. So we are going to put the last one in. It just it's pretty much parallel to the top bolt here. So this one here is it's parallel here, so you can just follow it at the bottom. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a piece of blue shop towel at the bottom of the bolt to hold it in place so that I don't drop it, and then I'll be able to get it in at the bottom so I don't drop the bolt. I'm gonna put the last one in. And if you can, you probably want to do that bottom corner bolt first, because that's the hardest one to do out of all of them. So we're just going to snug the bolts for now, and then we are going to torque it after. So we are just going to carefully snug up the other bolts. You want to work in a crisscross fashion. I'm going to do this one here. This cordless ratchet produces a lot of torque, so you don't want to tighten it too much. This can go up to 55 foot-pounds. These bolts are probably 8 or something foot-pounds. I'm going to grab the torque spec and put it on the screen for you guys. Okay, and then we're going to tighten the bottom one here. So we snugged up all of the bolts. We are going to torque them now. So now we are just going to torque the 4 bolts up. I checked the torque specifications, and it gives me a range here, 70.9 to 101.7 inch-pounds. For every 12 inch-pounds is 1 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna do like a happy medium. So we'll do 96 inch-pounds, which is roughly 8 foot-pounds. So we are going to do that. So we are going to torque all of the bolts now. I already did the first one off camera. That's torqued. You want to work in a crisscross or star pattern. So you want to torque them evenly. And that's one. That's the second one. Do the one that's at the bottom here. And then the last one here on top at the back. And you want to go through them again and make sure it's tight. Make sure everything is tight. And you want to go through again to make sure everything is tightened up properly. Just to be sure. And then that's it. So after you're done torquing everything, you can put everything all back together. We're going to reinstall the upper radiator hose back in. Make sure you are putting the clamps back to where they were. If the clamps have not lost tension, then it's okay to reuse them. Otherwise, you should replace these clamps. So now we're just going to reinstall everything all back together. Then we'll need to bleed the cooling system afterwards. this now. This is going to go back to the airbox area. Just make sure you didn't forget anything. I need to figure out where this bracket goes. So for the time being, we're going to reinstall this bracket that holds the wiring harness in place. I'm just trying to put the harness back in. One goes in here in the back, and the other one goes at the bottom in the front. This one goes at the front. Just for future reference, if you want to get these two harnesses out of the way, the 10 millimeter bolt is right here and where the bracket is. So we're just almost done, just putting everything away. So I got the nut in, and the bracket goes like this. Just the piece at the bottom was broken already, so it just clips into the hole. So it's just supposed to hold it in place like this. So we are just going to install the cover for the computer of the vehicle, or PCM or ECM. And we just need to put the air box away and stuff. And I did recommend to the customer that to clean the throttle body. So we are going to do that as we are here, and we are going to be replacing the air filter. So once everything is all done, we are going to put the air box back. I placed the rag inside the other part of the air box because I don't want anything to fall in there, because if something falls in there, you have to take the whole thing apart in order to get the object out of there. So I usually cover these up with a rag. So we're gonna reinstall this. We have the new air filter that we are going to put in. So we are going to install the new air filter. Install the air box back. Install the mass airflow sensor connector. I'm going to install this back, and the PCV. We're going to tighten down the clamps after. So now we're just going to tighten up the clamps here. So we are going to install the air snorkel. So we're going to install the air snorkel, install the battery cover. And we just need to fill it up with a coolant. So we're going to fill it up with coolant. I'm using the Prestone Asian vehicles. It says it's for Mazda. Or you can just go to the Mazda dealer and use the FL22 coolant. It's like a darker green coolant. It's pretty much the same. The ethylene glycol coolant, the standard green stuff. So we're going to fill it up now. This is a pre-mixed coolant, so you don't need to add any water. Just make sure as you are filling up the coolant that there are no leaks. And after I'm done with the filling up, I'm just going to wash the areas down on where it leaked out puddles of coolant. And then we are going to start the engine and bleed the cooling system. So I'm just going to clean the area down here. There were puddles of coolant. We are probably going to wait maybe 10 minutes or so just to let the water dry up, and then we are going to start the engine. And then now we are going to start the vehicle. So we are going to start the engine. I did do the throttle body service on this, so it's probably going to stall. It may not start right away. I may have to hit the accelerator to rev the engine up. So it may not start, and it may trip some codes. So anyhow, I'm going to try to start it. There's a lot of smoke coming in the back here. There's a lot of smoke coming out from all of the cleaner. Look at all the carbon. So we're just going to let it idle for some time. So make sure you have the fan or blower motor on full blast all the way on heat, and in this position through the vents. So I just I cut off the instructions to the point on what I need for bleeding the cooling system. So we're going to let it idle until it said until the thermometer indicator is at the center. So until it reaches about halfway, then we are going to we are going to increase the engine RPM afterwards. It says to run the engine at 2500 RPM for 5 minutes, then run the engine at 3000 RPM for 5 seconds, then idle. So at first we are going to idle until it warms up, and then we are going to proceed over to the next steps. So the engine is running now and idling. Just verify that there are no leaks. Make sure everything is okay, and then just continue with the bleeding procedure. So now the engine has pretty much almost reached operating temperature. So we are going to proceed to rev the engine up at 2500 RPM for approximately 5 minutes. And I'm also watching the temperature here as well on the scan to 102 degrees Celsius. So now we're going to rev the engine at 2500 for 5 minutes. And take note about heat. I'm not getting any heat yet. So we're gonna just roughly at 2500-ish RPM and keep it there for 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes, we are going to run the engine at 3000 RPM for 5 seconds and then idle. So now we are idling. It doesn't say how long to idle, but then it says to repeat steps 1 and 2 twice. So we are going to run it at 2500 RPM for 5 minutes again, and then 3000 RPM for 5 seconds, and then idle, and do that twice. And then you would need to double check the coolant level afterwards. As you are bleeding the cooling system, you want to make sure that you are getting heat, and double check that the engine does not overheat while you are bleeding the cooling system. So after you have ran the engine at 2500 RPM for 5 minutes, and then 3000 RPM for 5 seconds, and then idle, and then you will need to repeat that twice. And then after that, you will need to shut the vehicle off and allow the engine to cool down completely until the coolant gauge on the dash, until the needle is at the cold, at the C mark, and double check the level and top it up as necessary. And also between bleeding the cooling system, you may have to top up the coolant in between when you are revving the engine up. So you may have to top it up in between once or twice. And after you're done, that should be it. Allow the vehicle to sit and settle down until the engine is cool, and double check for leaks and make sure you did a good job, and then that's it. You can ship it out. And that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please don't forget to give it a like, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you're not already a subscriber, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care and have a good night.